Hi everybody, welcome to Chapter 5 of Principal's Guide to School Budgeting. This is probably the longest chapter that we're going to cover in this class. I'm anticipating this lecture to be anywhere between 35 to 40 minutes long. I'm just giving you a heads up on that. There's a lot of stuff to cover here, and I want to make sure that we take this one seriously. So this really is the principal budgeting chapter more than anything else. We're going to go over what makes up efficient budgeting practices, the steps involved in budgeting, and how to budget. Then the next chapter kind of ties it together and looks at what you can do with site-based management. So this goes over what you'll see in general at any level, district level, state level, anywhere you go. But then the next chapter is really going to look at the site-based management stuff. As I said before, I honestly, my videos have been fairly quick for this course. We've had a couple that have been about 25, 30 minutes. This one is going to be a long one. Grab yourself something to drink, grab yourself some food, take it easy. There's a ton of content in this presentation. This is one that I would have the PowerPoint in front of you. I would print it out. There's going to be a lot in this chapter that can help you with your final project, which is kind of the idea behind this and why I've highlighted this chapter so long. If you look at the slides, I have 59 slides for this chapter, and most of my other slideshows, you've seen they've been between 30 and 40 slides, if that. So this is a really long one, and there's a lot of important content in it. So take your time with it. If you need a break, take a break, and make sure you do the best you can with it. So the table on page 111 gives you questions that must be done to develop a budget. We're going to go over each one of these one at a time. This is something that I want you to consider for your final project in class. This is one of the reasons why I chose this book to complement Money in Schools, because this really will help you with your final project. This kind of lets you get your decision on where you stand on the budget, which I think is important, because at the building level, you can make decisions. Obviously, you have regulations, but you're able to make decisions on what can benefit and what can help you. So the first thing that you need to do more than anything else is consider professional development more than anything else. You have to understand what the mission of the budget is. Did you talk with central administration to understand it? Did you talk to your teaching staff? Do you have an idea for your vision and your mission of what you see for the building? If you don't, then you're going to be planning a budget that goes against what the district believes, and the possibilities are that you're not going to get it. You're not going to get your budget approved. So you need to think about how your mission for your building complements what's done at the district level, and I think that's very important. So you have to do a needs assessment as well, and we said this all class. The biggest challenge with school finance is the different types of regulations that exist. We have state level, federal, and local regulations, and that creates a problem because you're bound to each one of them in different forms. Different impacts have different things on student achievement. Federal is going to be more involved with Title I, Special Ed, ELL. Your state is going to be more involved with your property taxes, your attendance rate, your school grade, and your local is going to be more involved with attrition in the district and specific programming needs, whether or not your district needs a vocational program, whether or not your district needs a gifted program, a STEM program. So all of these impact student achievement. So you need to consider and think about, you have to budget based on all of these. And that's difficult and that's challenging. So there are going to be barriers when you're budgeting. The number one thing that I keep saying, chapter after chapter after chapter, is your funding and the weight of the money that you get really depends on the population of the students you serve. Meaning that your SPED students, your ELL students, they're going to have a higher weight. That means the personnel has to go to them. If you have a high integration of them into class, that's going to cause issues where things you want in the budget you might not be able to do. You might have barriers that exist. Your SPED population might grow overnight and you might not expect it to. So that's something else you have to consider as well. So try to have a goal and an initiative that you're including on the budget so you have an understanding of what's expected. So I believe this, in order for you to justify a budget, you need to show that instructional programs come first. Why are you teaching what you're teaching? What's the point? What's the purpose of it? When you're doing your final budgets for this class, I want you to really highlight the instructional needs that you experience at your level. Also talk about non-academic programs as well. Some districts have very, very, very large extracurricular programs, community service, athletic programs. They tie to academic, but that's something that really will drive your school district to have high migration into it, and that's something that you need to consider on when you're looking at school-based needs. I keep saying this for strategic planning. I'm coming from a business background. A good budgeter looks at 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, 10 years down the road, and they have a projection on where the building and where the district is going. What creates a challenge with that is principal attrition, because the average principal stays at a building between 3 and 5 years, so you might not care what the building is going to look like in 3 to 5 years, but you should consider it and you should build it into your programming, because that's going to help you set goals that are going to benefit the population you serve and the students in the building. So your learning community is the people that you have put on the committee to actually budget. You have to give your teaching staff time to do this. Our textbook doesn't mention this, but I think you can do this. I say send an email out to the teachers over the summer. That gives them time to think about what they might need, what's important to them, so that they know, so that they can think in advance, I might need this next year, this is something I need coming up. So that's something that you can consider, and you can actually add into your budgeting strategy as well. So you have to communicate with central administration on the budget as well. You have to make sure the superintendent believes in what you're trying to do. If you're trying to start a new program, a new course, a new offering, it has to have support from central administration, meaning you've gathered your data, you've explained how it's going to benefit the population of the students and the staff in your building, and that's important, and that's going to help you get the funds that you need allocated at the district level. You need to go to the superintendent when you have all your ducks in a row. If you go to the superintendent before you don't, just with ideas, then that shows your responsibility on your part and you don't have a plan. So different stakeholders and different community members need to be involved. Our book keeps saying everything has to be transparent in terms of budgeting. Once you have your ideas in place, go back to the faculty, go back to the community, go back to your site-based committee, and ask them what they think in terms of the decision-making process, and if there's anything that they feel you've left out or you could add to the budget as well. Consider all stakeholders when you're looking at how to improve your building. So our textbook talks about No Child Left Behind. We've all learned about this in our school reform classes. You're going to hear it from here probably till the end. It was one of the biggest reforms in the history of education, much like A Nation at Risk in 1983. This is, the big things that have changed school finance is this notion of high quality teachers. Schools that need assistance be granted it. And when we talk about the state aid in Oklahoma, we're really going to look at how Oklahoma does assistance, which it's different than what I'm used to from the context I'm coming from, but I think it's interesting, but I think it's also the fact that we have so many districts in this state. And then we have to be proving that Title I students make adequate progress. That's where your spending is going to go. So teachers should always be high quality. This should be the easiest thing you implement in your building. If your teachers are already certified, you don't need to worry about funding for this. Obviously, you're going to get into positions where you have emergency teachers that need to be hired. My experience and research across the United States has shown me that this is at the high school level. If you're not finding quality teachers at elementary or middle school, there's something wrong with you. There's not something wrong with the system. The high school, that can be expected because you have computer programming, physics classes, foreign language classes, high-level vo-tech classes, things that you might not have people that are certified as teachers that are leaving industry to come back and teach. So you'll give them time to get certified, but at the elementary, early childhood, middle level, your teacher should be high quality when they come into a building. If they're not, that's on you and that's really not on the system. So when you're hiring teachers, make sure they're certified and you don't have to worry about this. So if you need assistance, there are catches that come with it. So if you're getting money from the federal government, That's great, but that also means that you have to change your programming for it. The example that I gave you earlier in class was when I talked about what I experienced with Success for All. Success for All is a pre-scripted program that's run and it's done where the teachers basically read off of a script, and they get federal funding for it, but it doesn't leave any autonomy and innovation in teaching. So that was kind of a catch that came with the assistance that the district got. You have to be prepared for that, and sometimes there's nothing wrong with saying, I want less money to have autonomy. If you're in a district that needs autonomy, where the parents are happy with autonomy and the teachers are happy with autonomy, I don't see anything wrong with that, and that's certainly something to consider as well. So, you know, I've said this is a big idea in the course. SPED and Title I come first. ELL impacts it as well. ELL students can move in overnight into districts. One of the districts that I've been working close with here, just in getting to know people, is the Union Public School District. And one of the things that I've been told from a number of district leadership there is that the population of ELL students almost doubled overnight, and it wasn't something that the district was expecting. You might see this happen in your school district at some point, especially if you end up in a very rural area. You'll find that people migrate in packs. They go to the district and they do that, and that can destroy your budget because you have to put the ELL and the Title I budgeting first. So you might have this great program that you think is going to benefit you, benefit the district. Then this comes in and you have issues because you have to spend your money on ELL and Title I. This comes first. If you remember that, that's going to help you be effective in your position. So we're going to talk about the 3-point assessment plan. This is, your plan of how you're going to spend. So we're going to look at different kinds of data. Qualitative data really looks at the research literature and how you can support your building. If teachers can get release time to come up with ideas, that can be a good and positive thing. I'm going to highlight another district that's in this area because I know a couple of personnel that work at that district. One of the things that the Claremore School District likes to do is release teachers to go into other districts, see what they're doing, and build upon what happens there. And OWASO does that too. I think that's awesome because then you can see other schools, other districts, and how they're implementing programs and budgeting, and you can use it to improve your district as well. We're really not in an era, I believe, where public schools are competing with each other. I think public schools are competing with charter and voucher schools, but public schools should be helping each other to grow and build programs to create quality experiences for students. This is important, and this is why site visits can help you improve your educational situation. So quantitative data is simple. The State Department gives you this. You're bound to whatever they say. They give you the regs. You have to adjust to them, and you really can't change this. This is hard outside data that's provided to you. Adequate yearly progress, you have to understand it, you have to look at it, and you have to see if your school's improving. It's better if your school improves than if it stays consistent in terms of getting funding in this state. And that's different than what I experienced in Ohio. Ohio was kind of the other way. If you were consistent and stable and you maintained, then you got more money to improve. Oklahoma looks for improvement more than stability. So try to find ways that you're continuing to grow and look for improvement in your school. So the site-based decision-making team, this is done in faculty meetings, talking about what teachers want, what they need, what your administrative assistants need, what your guidance counselors need. Talk about anybody who cares about curriculum and figure out what they care about and get their opinions on it as well. So the other thing that you can do, you can look at academic records, state testing score records, and district fiscal information system and attendance records. This is all given to you by the state. It's common, it's easy to find, and it's easy to see. One of the things that I have not heard spoken about much in this state yet is this notion of benchmarking exams. I value benchmarking exams because a benchmark exam is one that you design at the district level to see how your students are doing and how they're progressing on the goals that are localized to what you believe is important for your school district. I like this. I think if you have time for benchmarking exams, and that's hard data that you can take to the school superintendent and you can say, look, We've shown that we have a 5% gain on our benchmark reading scores between 2nd and 3rd grade over the last 2 years. I believe if we implemented a daily 5 program, this would help us improve our reading scores. That can give you more weight in positioning when you're trying to build a budget. So try to find ways that these can benefit both populations and serve what it needs to serve. So, I'm going to talk about finding income sources. You should visit the book. It's 117 to 118. I'm going to give you basically the big ideas directly from the textbook, but this is going to help you with your needs assessment for this course. So the first thing you have to do is look at the mission statement, make sure where the campus vision meets the written vision as well as the district's vision, see if there's a campus action or an improvement plan, look at that and see where there are parallels. That's important. What happens at the building level has to somehow be parallel to what's happening at the district level as well. You have other studies of the district, you have statewide test scores. Always you want input from students and parents if you possibly can. If there's other data that you don't normally get, that you might be able to come up with that can help you find a way to improve budgeting, that's important as well. One of the things that we haven't spoken about much in this class, I'm coming from the state of Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania and Oklahoma are very similar because we're very state-centered states. I worked on the border between Pennsylvania and Ohio, and I would argue Ohio is more of a nationalized system where teachers in Ohio are likely to look to Indiana, Illinois, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, neighboring states for improvement. Oklahoma is very centralized, so is Pennsylvania. One of the things that you perhaps want to do is look at data that's available in Arkansas and Texas, see what that looks like, and see if there's any similarities or differences in the way that they're doing budgeting, and kind of bring that back to your building as well. So once again, here we go with the word transparent. I feel like I write this on about 20 times on each of these slides because each book consistently says transparency, transparency, transparency. You have to make sure that the learning community and the site-based team are on the same page, that there is full buy-in from them. If there are problems with the curriculum, that's something that you have to consider as well. Big ideas in any school district is that your priorities are going to be English first and math second. All of you know this. So sometimes your other areas suffer. I've been in districts where there aren't even texts for social studies and they're using scholastic and supplementary resources to teach social studies. Science is more along the lines of a project-oriented type of course. That's understandable because your curriculum budgeting and your instructional needs are predominantly going to come from English, reading, writing, and mathematics. So once you have data, you need to share it, and you have to look at research literature and say how the data supports the research literature. One of the advantages to doing this program, I think, is that you have professors in this program that really know who the authors are and who has supported the research literature. Don't pass aside the articles that you've kept from your classes, because if you find something that Bob Marzano or Michael Fullen or Linda Darling-Hammond has said that supports it, then you can put your data and back it based on research. And I think that's a positive as well. So priorities, as always, students should come first and foremost. As long as you can prove that, that should maximize what you're able to get. Take your recommendations to the district leaders and the rankings of each need, and make sure that the discussions are transparent with your sites. So, grants. It's difficult for building principals to write grants. I've never written a grant, and I can stand here and honestly say that. I've been involved in grant writing teams, but I've never been responsible for writing a grant. I worked in districts where they hired a grant writer. They're difficult. Some of you are thinking right now, I don't have time to write grants. And that's the truth. But if you can do it over the summer, you have a better chance of having time to apply, receive grants, and potentially get extra funding. They can support your activity fund and support your extracurriculars. So grants have to be spent in a certain time period. When you get money for a grant, you have to spend it, you have to have a plan for it, and you have to use it to improve the school. Government, nonprofits, and educational organizations are there. A lot of them that are at the school level will require you to match it. So you match the money you receive in some form. So I give you some organizations. I will say this, the NSF, our book talks about how important of a grant writing organization this is. If you can get an NSF grant,